Babygirl is a movie that expects its titillating premise alone to be enough to make it interesting. This is probably because it is a mainstream movie with a wide international release. It had to play it safer. When the public has been subjected to years of Marvel drab that has dulled the senses, a movie like Babygirl is considered refreshing or even groundbreaking, as it casts an older actor, Nicole Kidman, in a role where her sexuality is front and center. Babygirl is part of the new erotic psychological thriller Renaissance. Romy, our baby girl, is the CEO of a robotics company that aims to completely automate delivery, rendering the human worker obsolete. The central problem for Romy is her inability to have a fulfilling intimate life with her husband, as she has submissive proclivities that she's ashamed to share with her husband, thinking that it might offend him. Romy uses adult content to fill in the void, but it is not a substitute for the real thing. Eventually, she finds a potential dom in her young intern, Samuel, who is charismatically overconfident and has the gall to talk back to Romy. Kidman does not fully stick the landing as the icy CEO. Her demeanor lacks the commanding, confident presence of a woman who has made it in a male-dominated field. At times, the character is directed into a performance that is just over the top for the situation. There is no need to have her be a CEO if they are unable to utilize the position in a meaningful way in the narrative. Missing the very real political implications of such a role is somewhat of a missed opportunity. Romy has a mild, very undefined, and very vague inclination to masochism. This is never really discussed clearly. It is hard to believe that a woman who is at the top of her field with access to all the wealth, probably in the billions, has not taken agency over her own pleasure. Her behavior is more inclined to that of a housewife or a regular working woman, without the blanket security of wealth to explore their particular interests. Shame aside, rich people are into all sorts of weird stuff. Why is Romy's world so small in that area? She might be the only rich person out there still so ashamed of being a little kinky, which is quite frankly very unrealistic for a film in today's time, when people are just coming out of that eat the rich media saturation. If Romy already seeks out material online, and there's a lot more of that available at her fingertips today, there are plenty of services that can be customized to satisfy her every need. Rich people also have the luxury of discretion. To see her using these tools would have been more interesting and added more depth to her character. I doubt she's that out of touch as a literal tech CEO at the forefront of technology. When Samuel remarks that he has more power than her because he can make one phone call and it's all over, is very untrue. Wealthy people like Romy probably have the best lawyers on retainer, ready to sue anyone who threatens her company into oblivion. We still live in a world with institutions that always favor the rich. Her element of risk, the threat of losing everything, is not actually there. Even if it tells anyone because there's no mention of an NDA, it is still not really a threat. Female CEOs are not better than their male counterparts. No one with access to that much power or wealth can be a decent person. They try to have Romy as this flawless girl boss, white angel of the house. The film shows her unrealistically making sandwiches in an apron, being the perfect mother and wife and CEO with no eccentricities besides her interest in light masochism. I understand the need to show her as a perfect female specimen who is also a successful CEO with this tiny flaw of wanting to be dominated, but it is unconvincing. The film downplays her wealth, I guess in an attempt to make her seem redeemable and relatable. The director puts normal people's problems onto a character who is not at all. Where's the debauchery of a real-life CEO? Even if she was a middle manager in some average office having an affair with an intern, it would have been better as she really had something to lose. It would have been more riveting as these are actual people within society with a normal, relatable amount of wealth. Power can be addicting for all. The need to abuse it does not have to always come from the highest in society. Regular people have more of a stigma for having alternative modes of pleasure seeking than rich people. When she's given such an extreme job, we have to have her have more extreme behavior. Given the highly publicized assassination of a CEO in the same month the movie was released, even in the same city, it can be hard to get viewers especially me, to care about the character. When Romy proclaimed to Samuel that "you are mine," yes, she owns his labor to enrich herself. She does own him in a sadistic wealth hoarder type of way. She probably has military contracts for building robot soldiers. Is that Babygirl? Honestly, her role as a CEO who wants to replace humans with robot slaves who do not need to be paid and have many human needs is evil and sadistic. Director and writer herself might not be sure how the ultra-rich operate, or they are too afraid to go there, in an attempt to jeopardize any awards recognition. A mere mention of her childhood in a cult/commune as a way to lightly suggest her inclination to wanting to be controlled is unnecessary if they're not going to use it. The attempt to explain that it's not the cost of her interests, then why even mention it? Romy has a deep well of shame that leads her to suppress her needs. Shame like this has to manifest from somewhere. The dog imagery in an attempt to show her being dominated by man. She seems to be jealous of the dog, as people want to nurture and care for the dog. She wants nurturing more than being dominated. Does she want to be infantilized? With references to father figure and Samuel saying, "You'll always be my baby girl." She is literally a tech CEO, and there could have been a way to show the parallels of how these companies operate and its similarities to actual cults. In these spaces, the tech CEO is heralded as a messianic figure, a lost opportunity that would have elevated her in the narrative and made the starkness of her need to be dominated more striking. The film is also called Babygirl, an infantilizing term Romy desperately yearns for. This is similar to the "I'm just a girl" trend that was rampant last year, where adult women lightheartedly joked about their inability to cope with the mounting pressures for women. So they started calling themselves girls. It was obviously just meant to be funny, but it can take away our agency and capacity to change our lives and go after what we want. Here, Romy, after most likely working so hard, is unable to cope with the stresses of life. She just wants to let someone else take control for once, while she can retreat to the comforting nostalgia of youth. Romy wants to make up for lost years. She misses the spontaneity of youth. She likes that Samuel's whole life is ahead of him. He is free to do drugs, have relationships with powerful, sexy older women, and dance freely in clubs. She too is vicariously living through him, like sugar daddies who are really after the youth of their younger counterparts. So is Romy, as she deals with the devastating downsides of having to wait for someone to be compatible with her. Just like a robotics company coming for humans, she too is fighting her planned obsolescence. With Botox, cryogenic therapy, and seeking erotic age play where she can for a few moments regress. Samuel is flattened into a manic pixie dream boy that is a blank slate for the female fantasy. The marketing of the film heavily leaned into for its female audience, which is fine, but it would have been better to see Samuel as a more complex, maybe even flawed person, as men usually are. The film attempts to show a generation divide with the young people in her life and how they're more open with their relationships than Romy is. I think that has nothing to do with generations. It's just her being basically a person with no agency. How can someone who worked their way out of being a kid from a cult to a CEO have no idea about the prevalence of BDSM? People are more interested in talking about seeing Babygirl and posting about it than actually enjoying it. They want to be part of the conversation. It is very much a film tailored to appeal to the internet audience. It is so hungry for virality as it is the language of cinema today. Films are judged by how it does online. The many edits on TikTok to George Michael's father figure in reference to Harris Dickinson's character dancing for Romy in the film has become even more hyped than the actual film. The film ends rather conservatively. Romy goes back to her husband and Samuel manages to sleep his way to the top, the more lucrative internship in Japan. Also, her husband can handle her now after talking to her and Samuel in that one scene. I doubt that in 20 years, Jacob did not know that his wife is sneaking off to watch adult content. After all, she watches it at full volume. Also, his angry reaction is also so formulaic. He's an artist. Maybe he would react differently, not as surprised. Cheating is the only transgressive act that most ordinary people can do, while for the ultra-wealthy, relationships are not always so a husband's freak out over the affair was for general audiences to be appalled. Hedda Gabler is referenced. She is a conniving character who manipulates people around her, but she dies in the end. So here, when Romy gets to live, it's meant to subvert the expectation, punishes women for wanting to live subversively. But in this film, the subversion is not anywhere at that level. Jacob comments that in Hedda Gabler, she thinks it's about desire. It's not about desire, it's about suicide. This laughably obvious line shows Jacob's obliviousness about female desire. It is too direct. Overall, Babygirl does not have the substance to really get into the heart of the issue brought up in the film. The premise is interesting, but the final product is paper thin. Any attempt at character development also falls flat. Babygirl has a lot going for it, but it is just underutilized. So instead of watching Babygirl, watch these films instead. The Piano Teacher is the most obvious reference to Babygirl. It has a similar premise with a middle-aged piano teacher working in a Vienna conservatory. She wants to have a masochistic relationship with her younger male student. This ends horribly for Erica as she's assaulted by Walter, as he's unable to respect her and is disgusted by her control over him. The film shows how the submissive is the one who has to take control of the situation and present the education necessary for the dominant. While in Babygirl, both of them seem to be fumbling in the dark about what they really want, as neither really knows what they are doing. A weird choice as we live in the information age, where we can just Google anything. Erica here is very clear about what she wants, writing a letter to Walter, detailing her needs, and he's appalled as he just wants a fling with an older woman that he can add to his experience. Erica has far more problems than well-adjusted, successful Romy, whose only problem is her repressed sexuality, while for Erica, a field concert pianist with a sadistic streak, it is presented far more complexly. Her perversions are a stark contrast to her posh outward facade. There is true danger lurking in her transgressions. The film also shows the source of Erica's issues is her family, specifically her mother. Her and her mother have a strong edible bond. They share a bed, a very revealing aspect of their relationship, as her mother relies on her like a husband or treats her like a child. Erica is still not free from her childhood trauma. As a living embodiment of it, her mother is still a prominent force. This film has a tragic ending, but it's very bleak and not fun at all. Over the years, the film has gained a Gen Z internet following who really resonate with the ongoing loneliness epidemic and the overall vibe of doomerism. This is a Netflix movie that did not get the buzz it deserved. Fair Play is a true erotic thriller that starts off full of explosive romance between Emily and Luke. Both work for the same firm and have decided to keep their engagement a secret from everyone at work. When a promotion opens up, Emily overhears her colleagues saying that Luke might get the promotion, but it ends up going to Emily instead. This causes a tension that builds into a danger as the story unfolds. Fair Play has that class commentary that Babygirl severely tries its hardest to ignore. Emily, from a middle-class family who worked her way up the corporate ladder after she received a scholarship from Harvard, she puts in the hours and research needed to become the best financial analyst in her team, while Luke is hired as a favor from the boss for his rich parents. Women in male-dominated fields are often exceptional because they have to be. Being better than their male counterparts is the only way to survive. Even when she's acknowledged by her male boss, Luke is quick to undermine her success and accuse her of sleeping her way, and thus feels her position was handed to her. Beware of men who are jealous of you. In an attempt to kick her down, Luke starts to insult her appearance and withhold sex as a manipulation tactic he learns from a self-improvement leadership course obviously created by misogynists. The film does an excellent job of addressing power dynamics of class and gender in the workplace, and how relationships are further complicated by these aspects. It explores the muddy territory of office relationships. It is exciting throughout, and the female character is compellingly acted by Bridgerton's Phoebe Denver. She balances the need to be nice and also the more dominating aspects that women need to have to survive in the workplace. Fair Play is a true corporate horror story. The Night Porter is a film about a former SS officer who now works as a night porter in a hotel, evading trials for his war crimes while working in the prison camps. Max then meets a former prisoner, Lucia, who's now wealthy and married to a musician who's in Vienna for a concert. They had a sadomasochistic relationship in the camps that they rekindled. Lucia, in her own twisted way, chooses to be dominated by Max as they hide from the SS commanders who want to kill Lucia as she remains a witness to their crimes. The film is controversial for romanticizing abuse. However, there's more going on. Lucia's choice to be dominated can be read as a way for her to reclaim her power over her abuser. The film aims to explore her trauma and subtly inform the choices that we make that are not always in the best interests. The film remains controversial to this day. Others are perhaps seeing the film more as Liliana Cavani originally intended, as an artistic reflection of how sexual obsession and all its often misplaced fervor can be fascistic in its tunnel-visioned ferocity. Cavani herself put it more simply: love comes always with a price to pay. This is a film about two women, Professor Cynthia and the student Evelyn, who are in a sadomasochistic relationship, with Cynthia the dom and Evelyn the sub, who dresses as a maid and does tasks around the house that Cynthia begrudgingly tells her to. Evelyn is in charge and controls the narrative. Cynthia becomes increasingly uncomfortable with Evelyn's more boundary-pushing demands. The film is atmospherically lush. It is not an erotic thriller, but it has a sense of quietness and quaintness that's refreshing in a film about these relationships. This is another popular film that most people can associate pretty clearly with Babygirl. It is a great interpretation of Mary Gaskell's short story of the same name. The film expands on it by giving the characters more interiority and fleshing out the dynamics of their relationship. The characters in Secretary seem lived in. The tone is not serious or thrilling with a sense of erotic danger like Babygirl attempts, but it is its own version of a dreamy reality, which was very much the style of the 2000s. Time just coming out of the 90s erotic thriller craze. Lee and Gray's eccentricities lead into every aspect of their lives. They are weird and they want to be. They do not let intense shame dictate their preferences. Lee, Gray, and the other characters are free in a way, as they know that they are freaks that do not fit in anywhere, so she's less constrained by societal expectations. Lee is seen doing research, listening to a cassette tape. Lee also meets people in real life to experiment and explore. Gray understands Lee on a level no one else seems to. In the end, they get married because they realize that they are the perfect balance. Isabelle Huppert strikes again, this time as the protagonist in Paul Verhoeven's Elle. Elle is a cool, confident CEO of a video game company. She develops games that are gratuitous, yet she seems demanding more violence and blood from her developers. The movie is about Elle's complicated relationship with people in her life, mostly men. From her serial killer father, a needy ex-husband, a wayward son, a vain mother's lover, her all-male team of employees in her video game company, as well as a neighbor who's also the one who assaults her. Elle later becomes a consensual participant in his assault fantasy. Verhoeven goes to places that few directors are willing to go. The film examines the tricky territory of violent consensual dynamics. Elle is masterfully helmed by Huppert in a performance that accompanies the film's satirical tone that Verhoeven is known for, while also being about grief, motherhood, female friendships, affairs, and family trauma. Elle presents a look into the challenges of womanhood and the complexity of sexuality. All characters are interestingly fleshed out, supporting the protagonist. The film is filled with twists and maintains its energy throughout. It's fun. Steve McQueen's 2011 film about a sex-addicted executive, Brandon, whose life unravels when his unstable sister, Sissy's arrival, disrupts his carefully regimented way of life, where he balances his outward polished image with that of his addiction. The film dives into the gnawing discomfort of having a shameful secret that is incongruent with the cool facade that society expects of its most successful. Brandon presents himself as a suave, handsome man who can get any beautiful woman, but fails to make any meaningful connections with anyone. Sissy brings to light the root of his perversions, which are hinted at as childhood abuse. Even though Brandon maintains a guarded disposition, we are still able to see his torment with the visceral scenes of him indulging in his addictions spliced between that of his sleek professional image. Shame as a feeling is potent and can destroy the soul. The film shows very deadly power over a person, breaking them down if it is continuously suppressed. School teacher Marie is dissatisfied with her model boyfriend, who is completely uninterested in sleeping with her. The core of the film is about the interactions between men and women. Marie does not understand the age-old question as to why it is so hard to be with men. She constantly remarks about a hatred for men, while also wanting to get closer and failing to have any meaningful sexual experiences. Marie is unsure about what she wants. She's going through a very French feeling of ennui, a listless dissatisfaction of life. Her indulgences in transgression are not always met with the pleasure that she hopes to get from these experiences. There are plenty of explicit, jarring scenes, but they all serve a purpose that is meant to meaningfully provoke the audience and make us think about how women are viewed in society in relation to their sexuality. Catherine Breillat is a controversial director who was accused by actress Caroline Doucet of allowing misconduct during filming. No legal action has been taken as yet, and Breillat denies all accusations, claiming that Doucet was aware of all the scenes that she was expected to perform. What Breillat needed was an intimacy coordinator, but I'm sure she would have hated that. Babygirl is more concerned fantasy and wish fulfillment and portraying the ugly truths, which is fine. Sometimes treating into fantasy is necessary, yet it does not have the fun nor the searing danger of an erotic thriller. At least Babygirl moves that needle slightly into a more open and honest territory. The mid-budget film is just starting to get her groove back.